So, welcome back to the podcast. It's been really great to have you on, especially after our under insurance episode.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Lovely to see a lovely face again. So,
Thanks.
we were talking and chatting and looking at everything. We thought, let's do an episode talking about aesthetics insurance and actually how it breaks down into it because obviously it's very big. Can be very daunting for those who have not taken it out before or even still like 5 years in the industry. So we thought this would be a really great idea to do. So I guess, the main first question is, what is aesthetics insurance and what are the prerequisites for it? So how does one qualify for it?
Okay. So when we look at aesthetics insurance as a whole, you generally have two types of clients. So you've got medics and non-medics. Um, Both have obviously their own criteria. I would say we'll go medics first because that's generally the easier one to explain. So for us to be able to insure a medic, all we require is that that medic is licensed with a governing body, whether that's NMC, GDC, HMPC, whoever that may be. As long as they are licensed and have an active PIN, that's generally all we require for a medic to be able to gain insurance. There is a bit of flexibility. So what I mean by that is if they were a medic for say 10 years and their PIN has recently expired, there is cases where we can send that into the insurers and they will still accept it as a medic. But that's not every case. We do need those clients to explain the situation and we do need a bit more information. But that is still a potential option that we can refer those cases into the insurer and they will potentially still accept them under medic rates. Non-medics is a little bit more in depth. So we have a few different ways that we can insure a non-medic. The first way is what's known in the industry as an approved fast track course. So fast track courses, just to give you a bit of a background, are something that we actually designed as a broker. And the reason why we designed these is we kept finding a lot of beauticians that had been in the industry for many, many, many years, held lots of wonderful qualifications and had done lots and lots of treatments for many years, but they didn't necessarily meet the normal prereqs for aesthetics insurance, and there was no way for us to insure them for Botox and fillers. So what we basically did was we approached at the time one of our insurers and said, look, we need to find a way of insuring these, and that's where fast tracks come about. So yeah, we now use a number of different academies for fast tracks. Fast tracks need to be approved by us before a training academy can start doing them and offering them. So not every academy has approved fast tracks with us. There is only certain academies. Um, but yeah, as long as a student completes a recognized fast track with one of our training providers, then we can insure that person once they've complete the fast track with no other prereqs. So that's one of the routes that you can go down as an approved fast track course for a non-medic. The second route is beauty qualifications. So if you hold an MVQ level 3 in general beauty or equivalent to an MVQ level 3, we can also insure you. It's important to note that with that, it needs to be the full general beauty MVQ level 3, because there is sort of side passes to that. So you can do like an MVQ level 3 in massage or an MVQ level 3 in, I think it's electrical facials, which just trains part of the MVQ 3, not the full MVQ. So we do require it to be the full MVQ level 3 in general beauty. But yeah, if you have that, then you can also gain insurance with most of our insurers for a non-medic. And the main one, the last one, is needling experience. So most insurers look for a minimum of 6 months post-qualification needling experience to go hand in hand with anatomy and physiology level 3. Now, when I say 6 months post-qualification, so that's you do a micro needling course, You pass that course today, you get certified today, you then need to go and do 6 months worth of microneedling treatments from today on clients. Um, doesn't necessarily need to be paying clients. So you can do things like friends and family and that sort of stuff, but you just need to be able to evidence that qualification. So consent forms, etc. The reason why is because that is one of the first things that the insurers will ask for in the event of a claim is proof of your needling experience. And if you cannot prove that you've got that 6 months needling experience, that could put the potential claim at risk. Um, there is a few other ways and avenues into non-medics insurance, but that generally is your sort of three main ways in. For example, if you don't have anatomy and physiology level three, but you've got 12 months needling experience, we can still insure you. Um, or if you've got like an MVQ2 and X amount, I think it's 3 months needling experience with an MVQ2 in general beauty, we can sometimes still insure you. So there is other avenues into it, but that is generally your main three. You've got the fast track to aesthetics, you've got MVQ level three or equivalent to an MVQ level three in general beauty, and then 6 months needling with anatomy and physiology level three.
It's great. And obviously it's a case by case basis, isn't it? Like whoever kind of comes to it, you may not necessarily fit into the cookie cutter hold, so to speak, but it's like the least you can do is at least phone us up and obviously like explain your situation because you never know that the insurers might be like, well, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And
Yeah,
not
yeah, of
everyone
course.
has had a traditional route, so to speak, coming
Yeah,
into
and this is
aesthetics
why
and beauty like
this is
that.
why I say there is potentially other avenues that can be explored. Just because you don't meet one of those three doesn't mean that you will not get insured. It just means that we will have to take probably more information from you around your qualifications, your experience, your training, etc., and refer it off to the underwriters. Um, One thing that we find is a lot of people don't actually realize they have the experience, so they might not understand fully what classifies as needling.
Mm,
I've spoken to people personally myself in the past, and I've said, look, have you got 6 months experience in needling? And they've gone no, and then they're calling back 30 minutes later saying, actually, I completely forgot I've been doing
mm,
micro needling for the last 3 years. When you asked me about needling, I thought you meant have I been doing Botox or fillers for the last 6 months? And so, people get confused. So absolutely fine. Just pick up the phone, have the conversation with us, and we'll ask the right questions to be able to ascertain whether we can insure you or not. I also appreciate as well that this is our criteria as a broker. Other insurers and other brokers may have different criteria. So just because we've said, look, unfortunately, based on what you've told us, we can't cover you, doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get covered. There might be other insurers that have arrangements with the academies or with insurers where they can potentially insure you. So as much as we, love to insure everyone, sometimes we can't. So yeah, pick up the phone, ask the questions, and we'll be more than happy to help.
absolutely brilliant. So I guess the kind of second question is, someone kind of calls up and, they can't necessarily just get it uh, through our website. How does it all go about? So we don't have to go for a play by play, obviously, but when people call up, they're going to find out anyway. But like just to ease
Yeah.
anyone who's a bit unsure, how does it work when you do pick up the phone and call one of our advisors?
Okay. So yeah, obviously we try and make the process as simple and as pain free as possible. I appreciate and we appreciate as a business that the last thing people want to be doing during their day is sitting on the phone for 20 minutes speaking about insurance. It is quite a boring and tedious thing to do. So we do try and make it as painless as possible. But obviously people need to appreciate that we as a business are heavily regulated by the FCA. So we have a process that we have to go through to enable us to provide you with a quote.
Mm,
That involves us taking a full profile from you in terms of your business, what you do, your qualifications, your certificates, making sure they're accredited, all these sorts of basics. We need to ascertain about things like turnover, where you do your treatments, your claims history, your personal circumstances, basics, ever been bankrupt, CCJs, criminal convictions, all the basic profile questions that you get generally for any insurance that you apply for. When you ring up for car insurance and house insurance, they need to know about convictions and stuff. It's no different.
Mm.
We then have, depending on the insurer, a set of insurer questions. So each insurer has what's known as a statement of fact, which is a set of questions that they need answers to be able to rate the risk. And that's generally around, again, quite similar things. So qualifications and your history in the industry, as well as things like hygiene, cleanliness, all the basics of running a beauty business. Um, Once that generally is done, obviously we will go through the cover and we will explain to you how the policy works, how the limits of indemnity work, things like excesses, how that all works. We will offer other benefits outside of your standard package that may be of interest to you. So, for example, some insurers will do things like contents, tenants improvements, buildings, business interruption. We will then also go through as well the additional products that we offer as a broker. So things like legal protection or excess protection, things that might help you in your business moving forward. And then the last thing that we normally do before giving pricing is just go through what's known as endorsements. So that is like your terms and conditions from the insurer that you need to follow as a practitioner for your treatments. So just to give you an example, if it's a dermal filler treatment, there'll be an endorsement on the policy which will include things like making sure you dispose of your sharps in sharps bins. It will have in there around maybe dermal filler products that the insurer doesn't insure you to use. And these are things that you have to abide by with this insurer. If you don't, it could invalidate your policy. So the endorsements are a very important bit. So we always go through these with you over the phone before you purchase the policy. And we will also include them in your policy documents. So you've got a hard copy of these to refer back to at any time during the term of the insurance. And then, yeah, once the endorsements are done, it's a case of giving you the price. Obviously, you're not obligated to buy the quote. So if you've had cheaper prices elsewhere, obviously we will hold conversations with you around those cheaper prices, making sure that that cheaper price gives you the cover that you and your business need. But, we're not always the most competitive in every case. We like to think that we are very competitive and we hold our own very well in the market, but there is cases where we might get beaten on price. And this is the luxury of us being advised. I've held many of conversations with people in the past where we've just been beaten. The cover's the same in terms of limits. The terms and conditions are the same, and the client is happy with the terms and conditions. We are just £20 a year more expensive. And if that's the case, then great. Go with the other insurer, and we'll try again next year. So it's not all about cost with us. We will always make sure that the level of cover you are getting is adequate to protect your business. I would much rather pay 20 quid for a year, 20 quid more a year, sorry, for a policy that I know will work in the event of a claim, rather than cut a few corners, save 20 quid, and then have hell when it comes to claim. Because, yeah, 20 quid's 20 quid, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well, because at the end of the day, it's not just about, okay, what can I get cheap that's okay, so then I'm insured, I'm all done, I'm all sorted. It is very much you need to pay attention to the details. Are you definitely covered? Is it fully going to cover you in the worst case scenario, which hopefully would never happen, but you've also got to prep for that kind of thing. It's something you can't just ignore.
Yeah, agreed. This is the reason why you have insurance, right?
Definitely. So obviously you kind of talked us through each little part. Which sections should people pay the most attention to?
So obviously, one of the main ones is making sure that during the process, you're as truthful and as honest as you can be throughout the whole process. Because as an insurance broker slash insurance company, we put a lot of trust in you when we're going through the process. For example, things like your certificates. we won't take copies of them up front. We don't need you to send in 100 certs, because we speak to hundreds of people daily, and if everyone sent us 100 certs, we'd have no file
Snowed
space
under.
left. So, we trust what you say to us when it comes down to like your qualifications, your courses being accredited, your things like your turnover, your sums insured amounts, and things like that. So, be as truthful and as honest as you can when going through the process. Um, Obviously, important areas to pay attention to is obviously things like endorsements, the terms and conditions of the policy that you need to abide by, because if you don't, your policy could end up being invalidated, which means that claims won't be paid. Statement of fact questions. So when an agent or an advisor is going through the statement of fact questions, again, make sure you answer them truthfully, because if you don't, that's only going to invalidate your policy again in the event of a claim. So if we ask you, are you working in a clean and sterile environment, but actually you're working out of your lounge where your dog sat, don't say yes, because that's technically not a clean and sterile environment. So, little things like that, just make sure you answer everything as truthfully and as honestly as you can. Um, One of the big ones as well is obviously, referring back to our under insurance podcast that we did, is limits of indemnity. So generally, a policy is split into two indemnity limits. You've got your professional indemnity slash medical malpractice, and then your public liability indemnity limit. So no one knows what a claim is going to cost. We don't, you don't, and the insurers don't. But like you said earlier, Dawn, go worst case scenario. Think of the worst when it comes to your indemnity limits, and always pick an indemnity limit that you are comfortable with. So if you're doing advanced aesthetics, i.e., things like Botox, fillers, threads, skin boosters, injecting people and putting things into people's bodies, opting for an indemnity cover limit of 100,000 or 250,000, in my opinion, is not enough. If you're insuring a salon and someone's offering you 250,000 for public liability for slips, trips, falls, and bodily injury, in my opinion, again, that is not enough. So, make sure you're adequately insuring yourself. I think I mentioned on the Under Insurance podcast, our insurers that insure aesthetics will not insure you for less than £1 million. That is our minimum limit. And we can go up to 10 million. Very rarely do we go that high, but we have done in the past. But we've done multiple policies on 1 million, 2 million, and 5 million. So, don't be afraid to pay that extra 50, 60, £100 a year to go from 1 million up to 2 million for that peace of mind, because peace of mind is probably very important to most people. This is why you have insurance. You have insurance for peace of mind, that if you ever need it, you are going to be 100% covered for what you need it to cover you for. So yeah, that's probably the most important parts to pay attention to when going through the process. And if you're going through the process and there's anything that you're unsure about, stop and ask questions. Don't just sit there not knowing the answer, because it's your business and it's your insurance. If you don't fully understand it, that's not a good place to be in when you need it. So if you're going through the process and you don't understand a term that's been used, or that could be something as simple as an excess. I've spoken to many people, not just in this job, in previous jobs, that don't know what an excess means. If you don't know, ask, and we'll explain what that means. If you don't know what endorsements mean, or if there's anything you don't understand, ask the question and get the guys to explain it, because they'll be more than happy to go through it in a lot simpler terms.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people, I know, obviously, you're saying you've got that kind of high limit and stuff like that. 1 million makes actually quite a lot of sense, because if you think about if someone trips or falls in your salon, for example, not only are they gonna sue you or whatever. There's so many costs, including the legal costs. You need the legal costs of your side. If obviously the defendant wins, then you have to pay probably their legal costs as well, emotional distress, as well as like time off work, obviously the wages that they've lost whilst being unwell due to something that happened, which, you didn't necessarily purposely make it unsafe for them, but it happens. And that those costs rack up so quickly. And that's why 100K or 250K is not actually going to cut it in the long run because of the amount of things that would be involved if that ever was to happen.
Yeah, agreed. I was having a conversation with a potential client on one of the social media pages the other day, which we then moved into sort of private messenger. Um, and we were having a conversation around indemnity limits, funnily enough, because
Mm,
they were with a policy that was, I think, 250,000. Um, and their argument, which to a degree was semi-valid, their argument was, but I've been doing these treatments for 15 years
mm,
and I've never had any problems. And my response was, but this is not just a treatment policy. This doesn't just protect your treatments,
mm,
and you may be the best semi-permanent makeup artist in the world, but an accident can happen. But you've also got to think as well, these policies cover public liability. And public liability claims, someone tripping over or slipping up on a wet floor has got nothing to do with your skill level. You could be the best semi-permanent makeup artist in the world, but you cannot stop someone falling down the stairs. And if that happens, and like you said, there's so much that's involved in a claim. It's that 250K limit is not a compensation limit for the accident. That 250 covers everything from, like you said, court fees and solicitor fees all the way through to compensation if the person takes time off work, covering their loss of earnings. They could be a primary carer for someone else, which they can't care for them whilst they're injured. So they've had to pay someone else to care for them. You'll end up having to cover those. Like there's hundreds of costs, hidden costs that could be occurred. And like you
mm,
say, 9 times out of 10, if you lose your case in court, you normally get lumbered with the other person's costs, court costs as well. Um, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand is once the limit of indemnity is reached, anything over that, you as an individual or you as a business are liable for. Um, and that's the scary part for me. If the claim is 500,000 or 600,000, which we've seen these sorts of claims happen, and you've only got a 250K limit, your claim's 500,000, you are then liable for 250 grand. Like, I don't know personally anyone that's got that money lying around.
mhm,
And I would not personally want to be in a position where I'm trying to find 250,000 and potentially losing my car, my house, my assets because I've underinsured myself. And that is a potential risk with these types of policies. And that's not me saying that you will never be in that position if you select a million, because claims can go over that.
mm,
So this is why we say we don't do anything more less than a million, but we do more. So, if you don't think a million's enough, then you might be right. If someone falls down the stairs and they break their spine and they physically cannot work ever again, you could be then liable to cover their salary for the next 25, 30 years, plus all the court fees, the compensate, like,
it could
you
go
know,
on and on.
it could go on and on. If the claim goes over a million, yes, you could potentially be in that position with one of our policies. So if you don't think a million's enough, that's why we have the 2 million option. We have the 5 million, we have the 10 million. Because, how long is a piece of string? What is a claim going to cost? You're not going to know until you're in that situation. It could be something minor, customers not happy with the way their lips look, or they got a minor infection that cleared up with antibiotics, and that claim might be 10 grand. If it is, then yeah, your 250 policy's fine. But not all claims will be 10 grand, and not all claims will be 800 grand. But this is why you pay for the insurance, is to have that peace of mind that when you need it, you are going to be covered as much as for the limits of indemnity that you select. And, we won't advise you. We will never say, you have to have 1 million. We will give you the options. We will say, look, we offer 1 mil, 2 mil, 5 mil, 10 mil. What limit of indemnity would you like?
Mm. No, definitely. And is just so key to bear that in mind. I actually have a question that kind of pops up a lot from people actually is, can you add treatments as you go to your cover? So for example, they've got a basic cover, but they've recently kind of qualified in a new type of microneedling or something similar. And obviously then they would probably want to be insured for that treatment as well. Is this something that we do?
Short answer is yes. You can make changes to your policy at any time throughout the 12 months, um, depending on the type of change. So, for argument's sake, let's just say you're a microneedling slash semi-permanent makeup artist with a beauty insurer and you then qualify in injectables. You probably won't be able to add that to your current policy because beauty insurers probably won't insure injectables, but some do. So you may be able to do a midterm adjustment and add them on. Majority of the time, you will need to be moved from a beauty policy to an injectable policy. So that's what we call a rebroke. And we would take care of that process for you. So we would run you through the journey and then we would change your policies over. Let's just say it's a case of you are on an aesthetics policy, you're already insured for Botox and fillers, and you just want to add another treatment on, say B12 or skin boosters, then yes, you can add that on at any time. Some insurers may charge you to do this. Every insurer is different. But yes, the treatments can be added and cover can change at any time. The only time you may struggle is if you have an ongoing claim or you have been notified of a claim. So, for example, if you have £1 million worth of cover, a client calls you and says, "You done my lips last week and I'm lost all feeling in my face and I've got major infection," you can't then ring the insurer and go, "Just been notified of this. Can I increase my cover from 1 mil to 2 million?" Because you are expecting a potential claim. So you can't do that. But yeah, as long as it's just a case of changing cover, adding treatments, increasing limits, lowering limits, or whatever it may be, then yes, you can generally do that at any point. But there may be obviously additional charges, increases or decreases to the policy to that effect.
Brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up this episode about aesthetics insurance?
No, not that I can think of. Obviously, I'll mention it again if anyone's got any topics that they would like to discuss, or if anyone wants to be involved. If there's any beauticians out there or training academies out there that want to come in and ask questions and do a bit of a Q&A session, I'm again more than happy to sit here and answer any questions and have those conversations. But yeah, we will continue to do these. We'll delve deeper and we'll continue to delve deeper into the aesthetics and beauty insurance world. I think one of the podcasts that we said that we would look at doing, Dawn, is going into a bit more details around the indemnities himself. So
Yes.
explaining the differences between med mal, professional indemnity, public liability. So I think that'll be quite a good one. But yeah, if there's anything in particular that you would like us to discuss or any questions that you would like me to answer, then yeah, just let me know.
And obviously, if anyone has any questions, whether about possible insurance or their current policy, it's obviously give us a ring because at the end of the day, um, your policy is unique to you as well. And obviously, the advisors will be able to look at your account and help you as best they can, or well, end up maybe referring them on to you and they get to speak to your lovely self.
Exactly that. Exactly that. There's plenty of ways to contact us, obviously, phone, email, social media, um, whatever works best for you. Just reach out if you've got any questions or if you were looking for a quote. And yeah, hopefully we can help, and if we can't, at least you know that the policy you've got is a good policy.
Mm.
And yeah, reach
Great.
out
Well,
if you
thank
want to.
you. Thank you so much for coming on today to discuss this.
No, my pleasure. I'll speak to you soon.